All right, guys, welcome to all of you. And today's topic, as we have already discussed, would be the SSL handshake and the certificate operations, right? So what I'm going to do is, we're going to straight dive into the topic. Okay, no bullshit, nothing at all. Let's just dive into the topic we have. Okay. Now, see what we are going to do over here is I've divided this whole topic into certain parts. Okay. See, what happens is that before you understand the certificates, or before I go ahead and tell you the SSL handshake, right? There are a couple of technological terms that, or I should say terminologies that you should know. And if you already know them, great. If not, you should be aware of it. Why? Because those terminologies will be used in the handshakes as well as on the certificates, right? Otherwise, if I directly jump into the SSL handshake or certificate, those terminology would either make a bouncer to you, or you will basically not be able to understand the concept fully or 100%, right? So that's why I break this down into the initials or the basic terminologies first, and then into the handshakes and the certificates. Okay. All right. So the first would be the cryptography. So cryptography is basically the mother of every kind of encryptions or any kind of security that we can think of. Cryptography is the mother of it. Right. Now we'll go into the introduction first. Then there are certain types of it. Okay, and then moving on to the handshake and the certificate. Right. So if you look over here, so we have the introduction one, and then we have the types. So we have the types as symmetric, asymmetric, and then there's something which is called as hash. So we are going to go into this, deep dive into it, and then into the SSL handshakes and certificates. Okay. All right. Excited? Okay. Let's jump into it. All right. So the SSL and the certificate operation. So hi everyone, my name is Rakshit Vidyarthi, and I am going to be your trainer for today. All right. So let's move on to the cryptography first. Right. So we are going to first of all understand that when it comes to cryptography, what the heck does it mean, right? Because we need to understand what this terminology means, and then where it is used and why it is used, and how does this guy benefits us, right? So if you look over here, the first thing which it says is that it converts the plain text, which is to be hidden, into a ciphertext, okay, which is unreadable data. Now ciphertext, in a very plain simple language, is basically a text which cannot be read by us. Okay. Ciphertext is something which is complicated and cannot be read by human beings. It is just to protect the data from being read by anybody on the internet, or maybe somebody who is not authorized to see that information. So if there are two people and they're trying to communicate with each other, only those two people should be able to understand and communicate with each other, rather than having a third person back somewhere trying to figure out what the two people are communicating about. So that's what the cryptography basically means, that you are trying to convert the plain text information, okay, into a ciphertext which is unreadable, okay, using some mathematical formulas, or you can say algorithms. Okay. Now it is suitable for encrypting a large amount of data. Okay. Now when I say suitable for encrypting a large amount of data, what I mean is that encryption basically means to encrypt something, from, as I said, from plain text to ciphertext, right? And large amount of data basically means that if in case, let's say, you're trying to download something, you're trying to transfer some files, or let's say there's a company or an organization, and they're people out there who are trying to communicate with that company resources, and you want that to be encrypted first, so that nobody should be able to understand apart from the legitimate person, right? So that's why you need this kind of encryption in place, which is also called as a symmetric encryption. Now, why the hell is called it as symmetric encryption? See, the reason is that symmetric basically means, or you can say symmetric is similar or same. Okay. Symmetric key meaning there's just one key. Okay. And this key will be used to encrypt the data, which is from plain text to ciphertext, and it is also be used to decrypt the data, which is from ciphertext to plain text, right? And plain text is basically readable by human beings, and ciphertext is basically used by the machines. Okay. All right. So that's what the symmetric encryption is all about. Symmetric encryption is basically when you have just one single key and you're using that single key to encrypt the data as well as to decrypt the data. Is it clear, all of you? Type in yes in the chat box. Okay. Now, the third point says it is difficult to implement because the two parties must exchange their keys securely before the communication. Absolutely correct. See, what happens is across the internet, right? I mean, we know that internet is a public medium, and every kind of people are out there: attackers, hackers, penetration testers, black hat hackers, you name them, there are people out there, right? Now, if you are trying to exchange an information which is sensitive to you or maybe to your company, then you should be very much careful before you go ahead and exchange that information over the internet, right? So that's why in the symmetric encryption, it is always said that before you go ahead and start the encryption process or start to encrypt the data, you should the people who are interested in communicating, these people should be able to conclude a key, and that key should be shared in such a mechanism so that it is not available over the internet, right? So that's what it basically means that when it says it is difficult to implement because the two parties must exchange their keys securely before the communication. Now, there are ways how to do this. We are going to learn that today as well, but that's the challenge when it comes to the symmetric key. But when it comes to heavy operation and heavy exchange of data, symmetric key is one of the best to use. But the downside or the flip side is that you need to have a secure communication mechanism first before you go ahead and exchange this key between the two parties. Okay. Now, the fourth line, a little complicated, but it means is it says n users needs to negotiate n star n minus 1 by 2 different keys. What it basically means is, for example, let's see if my pen is working. Yeah. So let's say we have 10 users. Okay. So n becomes 10. Now it's simple mathematics. You say 10 star 10 minus 1 divided by 2 or by 2. So 10 minus 1, Bodmer's rule, 10 minus 1 is 9, right? By 2, and then you multiply this over here. Okay, so this goes 90 by 2, which is 45. So these 10 people need to have 45 different ways or different mechanisms to negotiate the keys. Okay, that's one of the downside. As I said, it's a flip side. So what do we do and how do we get these things to work? We'll see that in the coming slides. Okay, but then is it clear to all of you what is symmetric key? What is symmetric key? Why do we use it? What is cryptography? And what's the whole process which we can see over here of encryption and decryption? Is that clear to all of you? Type yes in the chat box. Okay, good. Okay, let me clear this off first. Hold on. Pointer options is all. Yeah, good. Okay, now next is the public key cryptography. Okay, now public key cryptography is also called as asymmetric key cryptography. Okay, and this guy basically uses two different keys altogether. One is called as the public, one is called as the private. Okay, for data encryption and decryption. Okay, now the public key is to the public key is, as the name goes, right? It is basically available to the public. Okay, and private key is possessed by the owner of it. Okay, so for example, over here, what's happening is that you have user A and user B. Okay, now over here you can see that we have users B public key. Okay, and over here we have users B private key. Now this private key is basically owned by him and is only and only in its own possession. Okay, but the B's public key, this is basically available to everybody. Okay, now it's if I give you an example, the public key and private key, basically you can think of, having two ID cards, right? One ID card is like a government authorized ID card, which is available. I mean, it's yours, but then it can be available to anybody. Whereas a private ID card, which could be your company's ID card, that is only between you and the company, nobody else, right? And that card won't be acceptable anywhere else. Okay, so just the same analogy, but you would have over here as well in the whole system that you will have a public key and then you have a private key. Public key is basically a key which is available to anybody on the internet, and a private key is something which you own, which you all have, and nobody else can have this information. So that is what is called as a private key. Okay, now in this whole process, okay, what happens is that whenever you are going to encrypt the traffic or decrypt the traffic, there are certain rules and regulations which goes by it. Okay, now what are those particular rules and regulations? See, assume that the user A has the public key of user B. Okay, and the encryption and decryption process will happen in certain ways. The process would be that user A uses the public key of user B over here, okay, and is going to encrypt the data. Okay, so whatever encryption that has to happen, okay, that encryption will happen with the help of users B public key. Okay, now once the data is encrypted, it is then sent over to the other side. Okay, now user B is going to decrypt the data using its own private key and gets the original information. Okay, now the rule of public key cryptography or the asymmetric cryptography is that whatever you encrypt with the help of public key, that can only be decrypted with the private key. So public key, you encrypt some information, that can only be decrypted with the help of private key. Okay, so if the decryption process has to happen, it has to use private key. Okay, that's the rule when it comes to the public key infrastructure. Whatever is encrypted with the help of public key, okay, that can only be decrypted with the help of private key. Okay, so that's the rule. This is why it is also called as the asymmetric encryption. Why? Because you're using two keys over here, right? 1 and 2. So that is why it is called as asymmetric encryption. Okay, now in the symmetric section you have just one key, that's why you called it as symmetric. Okay, all right, now the next part, let's move on. Hold on. Okay, so is it clear about the symmetric and the asymmetric? Is it all clear? Yes, type in the chat box, yes, no. Okay, so see, as I said, that the reason behind explaining the whole concept of symmetric and asymmetric is because these topics or these concepts will be used in the SSL handshake plus in your certificates as well. So if I directly go over there, it will not make much sense to you, right? Okay, next is the digital signature. Now what exactly the digital signature is all about? See, what happens is that the digital signature is basically, um, okay, see, let's look into the first line over here. So the first line says it is generated by the sender by encrypting the digital fingerprint using its own private key. Okay, now next thing is I think I've okay, I think it got copied 2 times. Okay, anyways, second is the receiver uses the sender's public key to decrypt the digital signature and obtain the digital fingerprint. A digital fingerprint, which is also called as information digest, is generated by the sender using the hash algorithm. The digital signature proves that information is not tampered and verifies and sender's identity. So I am pretty sure this has gone like a bouncer to all of you. But see, I'll simplify this process. Let's look over here, the third one first. Okay, a digital fingerprint is also called as information digest. Okay, so this is a technical jargon. Okay, a digital fingerprint, or you call it as a information digest. Basically, though, both of them are talking about one single thing. Now, what exactly they are talking about? Digital signature is basically, you know, a way of ensuring that whatever information that you are sending to the other guy, okay, that information is not tampered with. Okay, so again, I'll read this out. It says a digital fingerprint, which is also called as information digest, is generated by the sender using the hash algorithm. The hash algorithm is again you know, hash algorithm is also a way of converting the plain text information to a ciphertext information. Okay. Now see, the fourth line says the digital signature proves that information is not tampered with and verifies the sender's identity. What it basically means is that if user A has sent some information to user B, okay, now user A cannot deny the fact that it has sent some information to user B. Okay, so user B has the digital signature, okay, which basically confirms or verifies that the information is coming from user A. If I give you a simple analogy, let's say for example you are ordering something from Amazon, right? So if anything is ordered from as Amazon, it is delivered to you, and the whole package is basically having labels of Amazon, right? So basically that reassures you that okay, the package is coming from the Amazon. Okay, and then you open it up, and then you, whatever the product that you have purchased, you'll get that product, right? So the reason behind having that Amazon packaging is, first of all, to secure the product that you have, and second is that you are also getting a labeling that okay, this particular package is coming from Amazon. So basically Amazon cannot deny that they haven't sent this package, okay, because it has all the details about the bills and the labeling and the package and all that stuff. Okay, so digital signature is basically the same thing, but it's just that they are digital, meaning that whatever information is being sent across from A, then and it is being received by user B, then user A cannot deny the fact that he has not sent this information. Okay, this is I mean, there's also one terminology which is called as non-repudiation. Non-repudiation basically also has the same meaning, where a person cannot deny the fact that it has sent some data. Okay, so maybe there was an attack or something which happened, then non-reputation or digital signature basically can confirm that who has sent that information. Okay, so that what basically a digital signature is all about. Okay, is it clear, all of you? Yes or no? Type in the chat box, please. Okay, now the next part on this particular section is called as a digital certificate. Okay, now see, what we have gone through right now is symmetric encryption, then we had asymmetric encryption, then we had talk about the digital signature or the hashing. Okay, so we know that symmetric encryption is using similar or single key to encrypt and as well as decrypt. The asymmetric encryption is basically about encryption from a different key and decryption from a different key. Okay, now digital signature is about sending the information from user A to user B. So look we have every time that you have, whenever we are trying to communicate, right, you have user A and user B in every communication, doesn't matter if it is symmetric or asymmetric, right? The digital signature is just adding to the point where that if sender A sending some information to user B, then user B can verify that okay, sender A has sent this information, not somebody else. Okay, that's the whole point of having a digital signature. Is that clear, all of you? Is this clear, what we have covered till now? Yes. Okay, now let's look into the digital certificate. So first thing it says that it is similar to a passport or an identity card. Yes, digital certificate is just like an ID card. It is just like an ID card. Just like you have a, let's say you can have a government authorized card, like, for example, passport, right? Passport is basically a way to identify a person, right? Its nationality and male, female, and is the passport valid or not? And passport basically gives you the power to travel to any country, right? That's what the passport does. And since this passport is been authorized by who? It's been authorized by the government. That's why it is acceptable all across the globe. Does that make sense to all of you? Right now, the same analogy goes with the digital certificate as well, where it is exactly similar to a passport. It is just like an ID card, and you can use this information all across the internet to verify you as a person, one, or you can also verify yourself as a website or a web server. Okay, so for example, let's say there are two, there are two devices. Let's say you have a PC over here, and we have a, let's say, Google server over here. Okay, so if PC has to communicate to this Google server, how will the PC will know that it is actually going to Google server and not some fake ID of Google server, somebody else, some attacker trying to portray itself as a Google server? Now how will you know that? Okay, this is by the help of digital certificate. By the digital certificate, you will be able to understand that whether you are genuinely getting to the right person or the right web server, or is it somebody else trying to portray himself as a different party. Okay, now let's understand the whole process of the digital certificate. Okay, so let's look over here. The first thing is plain text. So let's say this is just to get the google.com. That's it, google.com. So it is going to encrypt the data. Okay, now again, we are going to use the asymmetric encryption. Look over here, public key and private key. So instantly you should know that when you are using two keys, it's a asymmetric encryption happening over here. So I'm going to use the public key, recipient's public key. Who is the recipient in this case? See, the recipient is the Google server. Why the Google server is the recipient? Because I am going to him, right? I am going to the server. So who is the receiver over here? Google server, right? So Google server's public key is available all across the globe, right? So what will happen is that I'll encrypt the data with the help of Google's public key. Okay, the information is encrypted. Now you tell me, if the information is encrypted by the Google's public key, who has the authority to decrypt this particular encryption? Google's private key, right? I mean, Google basically, right? So different keys are used to encrypt and decrypt. That's fine. Then once the encryption is done, go over here. Then the recipient or the Google web server is going to use the private key and decrypt the information. And there you go. You'll get the information of plain text. So now recipient, basically in this case, Google server will get to know that, okay, there is a PC out there who wants to get the Google web page. Okay, fine. Now, let me clear this off. Hold on. Okay, now is this clear to all of you? Are you able to understand the concept of having a digital certificate online, and what does it mean? What is the ID and all that stuff? Type in the chat box yes and no. Good. Okay, all right. Now let's move on to something which is called as the SSL handshake. Okay, now see, now what we are going to, so as of now, whatever we were discussing was all theoretical, right? I was just letting you go through the concepts of what every terminology is and what does it mean and how does it work. Okay, now we are going to move on to practical part of it, where I'm going to show you how exactly the SSL handshake works, how is the certificate works, and all that stuff. Okay, so yes, before we going on to that, let's understand the SSL handshake first. Okay, see, there are 10 steps. I mean, if you go and just try to do a Google search, you will probably have 100 of articles on the SSL handshake. Everybody has a different way of explaining that particular handshake, but you might find somewhere 5 steps, maybe somewhere 15 steps or 20 steps. But then because there is no specific, just like a three-way handshake, a TCP three-way handshake, you have 3 steps, right? Since an ACK. But with the SSL handshake, there's no specific steps. Okay, so it is just used as a reference whenever you are trying to explain an SSL handshake. Okay, so there are 10 steps or 15 steps or 5 steps, right? But the concept remains the same. Okay, so let's understand the handshake now. So first thing which we can see over here is a client hello. Okay, so again, the same example. Let's say I have a PC and I am trying to access Google. Okay, so we all know that when the SSL handshake starts, okay, the first step which it says is a client hello. Okay, now the client hello has certain information, certain cipher suits, okay, which it is sending across to the server, and server is going to check what all cipher suits are coming and which one I can work with. So the server hello is exactly the same thing, same cipher suit information, but then over here the server hello basically tells you about which information it has selected. Okay, so let's say for example, if client hello has sent across 10 cipher suits, okay, so whichever the server hello has selected, it is going to show you that. Okay, now apart from this, you also send your own certificate. Now when you say a certificate, basically you are saying you are sending across your public key. Now we all know what is a public key, right? So we are basically sending across a public key. Certificate is a public key or an identification of who you are online, right? So this is what the Google server is also doing, that it's sending its public key or the public certificate for you to understand that you are actually going to the right person and not somebody else. Okay, then you have something which is called as a server key exchange, right? So what exactly the server key exchange is? See, server key exchange basically means that now you are basically transmitting the asymmetric encryption. The asymmetric encryption has started to work over here. Okay, so you will be sending the public key. The client is going to accept that. It is going to generate some information from that. Okay, now how does that all these things works? Let's see from a Wireshark capture. Okay, because again, theory will not make much sense. Let's move on to the Wireshark capture and let me show you how this works. Give me 1 sec. Let me clear this off. 1 second, guys. It's somewhere in my Google Drive. Should be over here. Yep, got it. So let's download this. So I've actually I've captured a Yahoo. I've visited Yahoo and taken a capture, a Wireshark packet capture. Okay, so this basically is the whole the Wireshark capture of me trying to communicate to yahoo.com. Okay, and all the information was captured with the Wireshark. Okay, now if you look over here, the first packet. Okay, so let me see, is my pen working? Yeah. Okay, see, the first thing over here is the SYN packet, right? You can see this. So 192.168.43.63, this is my IP. Okay, this is the source IP. The destination IP is 202. So again, for you it could be different, of course, because the IP address can be different as compared to what location that you're on. Now the next is the protocol. So we know that the first thing which happens is a TCP three-way handshake, right? So the SYN packet will go on first. Then we have the SYN ACK over here, right? And then we have the acknowledgement. So we know that the three-way handshake is complete. Okay, so the three-way handshake is complete. Once this three-way handshake gets completed, right, the next thing is your SSL handshake. Okay, so let's see that. So over here, yeah, there you go. So do you see this packet, the 8th one? Okay, now the 8th one is basically talking about the packet which is a client hello or the SSL handshake. Okay, now let's see this. Okay, so this is the client hello that we can see, right? So let me open this up. Okay, so this is the client hello. Let me move this. Hold on, somewhere over here. Okay, now do you see this? There's a transmission control protocol, goes with the port of 55036, and then we have 443, right? So again, it's just to understand that where the communication is happening. Okay, so let me give you just a quick understanding of how this thing works. Okay, do you see this IP level information? Okay, in the IP level information, you can basically see the source address, which is my IP, this destination address, which is the Yahoo's IP. Okay, Next, what header as per the OSI layer, right? What is the next header? We know that this is layer 4. Okay. Now we are going above, it's like layer 3, then 4, then 5, 6, 7. Okay. That's how it is. Okay. You see this? The first packet is a frame. Then you have the Ethernet packet, which is layer 2. Then layer 3 is the IP packet. Then next is the transmission control, which is TCP, which is layer 4. Right now, we know that we have the information of where it is. Yeah, the source port of 55036 over here, and the destination is 443. Fine, great. We also know that since the SSL is layer 7 application, right, or a protocol, so we know that this transport layer security, or TLS, basically means that the SSL handshake or the client hello resides over here. So it says TLS 1.3. So we know that I'm using, or my browser is basically using the 1.3 SSL version. Do you know this SSL version 1, SSL 0, 1, 2, and sorry, 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. This is how it goes, right? So the TLS 1.3 is being used. Client hello, handshake protocol, client hello. Now let's expand this and see what else do we have. Okay, it says content type is a handshake. So Wireshark knows that, okay, it's a handshake protocol, and the version is one. So the base version, as in the TLS 1.0 is the base version, and the minor version is 0.3, 1.3. Okay, length, and then you have the handshake protocol over here. So let's expand this as well. Okay, look over here. That's a lot of information. Okay, now isn't it better than having a theory, right? We know exactly what's happening. We know exactly what's going on the client handshake. Okay, now let's move on and let's see what exactly this is all about. Okay, so see over here in this section, you will see the info. I mean, do you see this random, this thing? So if you go and read any article on SSL handshake, the first thing it will say is that it sends some random data. Okay, but we do not know what random data is. Now we know, we can see what random data is. Okay, so this is the random data which my browser has sent across to the Yahoo's web server. Okay, to get the web server page, this is the random data which the client machine has generated. Okay, now I'll tell you why this is important as well. Okay, now we have a session ID. So again, session ID is being generated because it is not just you have opened up one web browser and you have a yahoo.com over there. Maybe you have 10 web tabs opened up, and everyone is having Yahoo, Google, Facebook, Insta, or whatever websites that you want to access, right? So every session will have a different session ID. Okay, so that the web browser knows that how to identify and how to differentiate between the two or the three web servers or the tabs that we have. Is it clear, all of you? Okay, then we have the session ID's length, and then we have the session ID. So this is the actual ID identification. Okay, and that's the length of it. Next is the cipher suits. Do you see this? So always, if you go into the SSL handshake, right? You know what? Let me show you. I think that will be much more interesting. Hold on, just 1 second. So I'm opening up my browser, right? And let's just I don't know. Let's just put in SSL handshake. Okay. Let's see, what do we get? Okay, it'll be a lot of, let's just take this one. So let's say what IBM has to talk about the SSL. And if it is good, then great. Then if not, then probably we'll check for other. Yeah, I think this is fine. This is fine. Yeah. So you go across Google, do Google search, and you'll get so many articles on the SSL handshake. Let's see what does it say. Okay, SSL TLS client sends a client hello. Yes, we are seeing that message that lists cryptographic information such as SSL and TLS version. Okay, and in the client's order of preference, the cipher suit supported by the client. Okay, the message also contains random byte string that is used in subsequent computations. Okay, now if you go through just these 3 lines, what a bouncer it is, right? Now let's just look over here in the capture. Okay, so it says that the client hello is sent and some random value is sent. Yes, we can see that. And it also says that what does it say? The message also contains random byte. Yes. SSL version. Yes. The protocol allows for the client hello to include the data compression methods supported by the client. Now let me show you. Oh, sorry. Okay, see, these are the cipher suits or the compression methods. Okay, now again, every article has a different way of saying this. Okay, so if I go over here, let's just say, let's take this up, because I'm just opening up multiple. You know what, there was a very interesting article with the Microsoft. I'm just seeing if you still have that. Okay, so let's take this up. So it says the client sends the client hello message to the server along with the client's random value. Yes, we saw that. And supported cyber suits. Yes, we are seeing that as well. Okay, so you can see over here, how many cipher suits does my system supports? 30. Or I should say my browser is supporting. Okay, so 30 cipher suits are basically used over here, or my web browser is basically using to send this to the web server, right? Now let's see, what does the second message say? The server responds by sending a server error message to the client along with the server's random value. Okay, so let's before I get into the server side, let me show you a couple of things, and I'll tell you why it is important. Maybe next week we'll take a web filtering session, so I'll tell you what options do we get over there. So see, you see this cipher suits, right? If I just expand this up, okay, you see the amount of cipher suits, all the other, random permutation and combinations that my browser can support, it is basically sending that across. So you see the TLS 8 AES 128, then TLS AES 256, then you have two TLS ECDHE, right? Then you have TLS RSA with AES 128, TLS RSA with AES 256, TLS RSA with AES 128 CBC, right? Do you see how many random values and random multiples and combinations of cipher suits the website is going with, right? So this is basically sending across all this to the web server so that your web server can basically choose whatever it likes. Okay, the next is, now see, this is very important. The one which I'm going to show you over here is the server name. Okay, now this is absolutely important. Why? Just try to search this up in Google, server name indication. Okay, now server name indication is again very much important from the FortiGate firewall's perspective. Why? Because see, whenever you are doing a URL filtering, right? URL filtering basically means the FortiGate firewall is checking for the URL, right? Now the firewall is not designed that it'll open up a browser and it'll check what URL it is coming. No, it is going to check into the packet. Inside the packet, it is going to check the client hello. Inside the client hello, it is going to check this information. Okay, it is going to check the server name indication. This is what the FortiGate firewall checks. Okay, so the FortiGate URL basically checks for this particular thing. Use FortiGate filtering. Okay, so FortiGate URL filter checks for this information, which is server name indication. And over here, you can basically see that you have the name, server name. Okay, and the server name is in.yahoo.com. Now, since I reside inside India, so it has in.yahoo.com. Maybe for you, it could be a different location. Okay, but point over here is it will always be yahoo.com. Okay, so this is what the FortiGate firewall checks. Okay, whenever it is going for a URL filtering. Is it clear, all of you? Is it all clear to all of you? Type in yes in the chat box. Okay. Now see, this is the client hello, and the information read supports. Okay. Now it also basically gives you the supported versions. Okay, the amount of supported versions that I can just look over here and says that if anybody is trying to negotiate with the TLS 1.2, I can do that. If anybody is using 1.3, I can do that as well. Right. Look over here, extended master secret. Now, what the hell is this? See, extended master secret. It should, yeah, see this, this is it. This is what it is. So the fifth steps is basically the client creates a random pre-master secret, encrypts it with the public key, with the server certificate, and send it across. Basically, this is what we are talking about. The extended master secret is nothing but some information. Okay, look over here. This random information that you see, right? This random information is basically used for the master secret information. Okay, so this information is inside the client hello. So client hello does not only mean that I'm sending a hello packet. No. It is also sending a lot of other information. It is sending the client version, the TLS version. It is sending the cipher suit information. It is sending the server name information. It is also sending the supported TLS versions, and it is also sending you the pre-master information. So now you know that inside the client hello, you have 5 more major things to send across. Those are major things. I mean, you're also sending the groups and the signature algorithms and the application layers, negotiation information. You're sending all these information as well. So in all total 30 information you are sending across, but these 5 are the most important. Why you should know? If you are in an interview, somebody asks you about this, you should know this. Okay, because if 10 people are coming and 10 people are talking about SSL handshake and you are talking about what exactly goes inside the client hello, you interviewer knows who to select. Okay, so let's go on to the next part, which is the SSL handshake now. Sorry, the server handshake. So now this is the client hello which we are talking about. Let me, okay, so scroll down. Do you see server hello somewhere? Yeah, there you go. Okay, server hello. Now inside the server, let's again expand this up. Okay, so okay, now let me show you one by one. So over here in the server hello, okay, you'll get some information which is more or less like a response. Okay, now see, in the first section or the first subsection, you can see the handshake protocol server hello. Let's maximize this. What do you see? Handshake. Do you see this 1.2? Doesn't make sense. When in the client hello, I was using 1.3, but in the server hello, server is basically using a lower version, which is 1.2, right? So over here, it doesn't really matter that which protocol version you are going on with. What matters is that both of them should agree on one particular version. Doesn't matter if it's 1.2 or 1.3. No, it's fine. Because and do you know why? Although it's not a question, but then if anybody is going for a tag question, okay, Cisco tag, Palo Alto tag, FortiGate tag, my students also came across these kind of questions as well, where it was asked that why you are sending, why the server is using a lower server suit, cipher suit. See, the reason is that the server has to accommodate a lot of requests coming in, right? A request could also come from from a very high end machine, and it can also come from a lower end machine. It can also come from a Android system. It can also come up from a Mac system, right? So to make sure that your security is not compromised, plus you're also accommodating all the other people or all the other devices as well, that's why you do not go with the highest version. You go n minus one, which is basically a version which is less than the highest. Okay, so that's the one which the server is also using. So that's the answer to this question. If somebody asks you that why server uses a lower cipher suit and what's the reason behind it. Okay, so now let's look into the handshake protocol server hello. Let's expand this up. Okay, now see, as compared to the client hello, you see a little less information over here, right? Now in this particular section, you can see the server hello, the version of the server hello which it is using, which is 1.2. Okay, it is also sending the random values, right? So now again the article which we had, right? So the article over here was saying the server responds by sending server hello message to the client along with the server's random value, right? So this is what we are also talking about over here. Okay, server is also sending its own random values. Okay, apart from this, it was also having its own session ID uniquely. Again, same concept, that the server also has to make sure that the identification is different from the other clients coming in. Okay, do you see this? Just one particular cipher suit which got selected. The one which we are using is TLS AES 128 GCM SHA-256. Okay, so that's the one which the server has accepted. So the server gone, took around 15. Let me show you again. So do you see this? You have around 15 cipher suits. Apart from these cipher suits, the one which the server hello selected was this one. Where did it go? Yeah, there you go. So TLS is 128. Okay, now the next thing is extension supported versions, right? So the supported version is 1.3 as well. So tells you that the server can support 1.3, but it is going on with 1.2. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. Okay, next. Let me minimize this guy. Now look over here, the next section, which is the TLS 1.3 record layer change cipher spec protocol. Okay, now let me show you over here. The SSL handshake document should say somewhere about the change cipher sec. Yeah, there you go. Server receives the change cipher sec. Now this is a step 8. So you might think that maybe after uh, in and out of 8 steps, then you are getting the change cipher sec. No, not exactly. The change cipher spec goes with the server hello. So now you know exactly how the server hello is working, apart from what the article says. Okay, so now we see that the chain ciphersec is also happening over here. Now what does this chain ciphersec basically means? Let's see what the article has to say. So we were on the second one, right? Server sending the server cipher suit and the random value. Third says server sends its certificate to the client for authentication and may request a certificate from the client. Okay, the server sends the server hello done. Okay, now there are certain changes now. It does not really sends a server hello done. What it does is that it just sends all this information across. Okay, so server hello, and then the chain cipher spec, and then you have the application data, which is HTTP over TLS. Okay, so is again, it's just the encrypted information which is going across, but it is all in the server hello. Now this is just sending the information to the client machine. Okay, now do you see this? There is a server hello, then there's a chain cipher spec and application data. Okay, it's the same information, exactly the same information. Next is if the server has requested a certificate from the client sends it, which normally does not happen unless you are having your own private server, and the communication between the private server is happening with an internal LAN segment PC. Okay, and there is a certificate authentication in place. If there is a certificate authentication in place, then the server basically asks for a client certificate. Fifth, the client creates a random pre-master secret. Yes, we just saw that, and encrypts with the public key from the server certificate, right? And sending the encrypted pre-master secret to the server. Okay, so now the client is basically sending this information to the server. Server receives the pre-master secret. Server and the client each generate the master secret, and the session key is based on the pre-master secret. Now, as soon as the client is sending the client hello and server sending the server hello, okay, these two steps is basically what these top 6. Okay, so from the Wireshark packet capture, you have just gone through the client hello and the server hello, and this information is already done. Okay, 7th is the client sends a chain cipher spec. No, it does not really happen like that. It basically happens in the same packets. Okay, the client sends a chain cipher spec notification to the server to indicate that the client will start using the session keys. Now, do you know what the session keys is? These are the session keys or symmetric keys. Okay, the random value, do you remember the random values which was going in the server hello? This random value was used for asymmetric encryption. This was the asymmetric encryption happening. Now once this asymmetric encryption has happened, it is again going to change this chain cipher spec. So you see this information, the chain cipher spec. This is just a way of telling that your communication, the next communication which will happen now with the encrypted data. Okay, now let's move on. Let me show you one thing more real quick. Okay, the client sends a chain ciphersec notification to the server to indicate that the client will start using the session keys and for hashing and encrypting message. Now we know what hashing is, right? Now we know what the session keys is. Now we know what the public key is. Now think of it, if I directly would have jumped into this particular SSL handshake, this would have not made sense to you. Okay, now guys, all of you have access to the Google forum link, right? I would want you guys to put in whatever questions that you can think of, okay? Because I do understand that I'm going on and on explaining the concepts, and you guys must be having some questions on it. Please just drop those questions to you. I'll be taking a break real soon, and then I'll be answering all those questions. Is it clear to all of you? Yes? Are you able to hear me? Okay. just type in all your questions and over there, and I'm going to take a break real soon, and then I'm going to answer those questions as well. Okay. So we know the chain ciphersec is done. Server receives the chain ciphersec, switches to the symmetric encryption, and the client server can now exchange application data over the secured channel. Okay. Now this is what over here. Let me do this. Yeah. So over here, the chain cipher spec is coming up, right? This chain ciphersec is what the article is also talking about, that this is just a way of telling, hey, you know what, I'm going to encrypt the information with the keys that I have, and now all the encryption which will happen, or all the data which will happen, it will be encrypted. So if your keys that you have, if you do not have the right keys, you won't be able to decrypt the data, and you won't be able to read that information. Okay, so it is just like a acknowledgement that, hey, you know what, I'm going to encrypt the data now. Okay, now this is what the chain cipher spec is, and that's it, done. Do you see this application data, application data, application, that's it. I cannot see anything now. If you go over here, if I open up the TLS security, I do not have anything. I can't see anything. It's all encrypted. Now, you know, there are ways to, get the public keys and the private keys, and you can, upload that information into your Wireshark, and then down, decrypt the whole process, and you'll see the yahoo.com just like an HTTP website. Okay, it's very interesting, probably a different session for a different time, but yeah, that's also possible. But my point over here is it clear to all of you? The client hello, which we just saw, this one, the server hello, the information that is available into the Wireshark packet capture, is it clear to all of you? Yes, good. Okay. Now again, I know you have questions. I can see the questions coming in as well. Please go ahead and use the Google form and put it over there, so that I'll, just take a break, and one by one, I'll take all the questions. What happens is, in the chat window, there's so many things coming in. I might, miss out your question, and I really do not want to do that. And you also do not want to do that, right? I want your questions to be answered right now. So please use the Google form link, and I'm going to, explain all these things to you. Okay, so let's move on to these. So this was the SSL handshake. Okay, one sec. Okay, you know what? Let's do one thing. The next is basically how to check the certificate from the web browser. Okay, now again, that's a 10-minute, maybe a 10-minute session. Do you want me to continue the 10-minute session, or should I wait, take your questions, and then move on to that? Okay. Yes, that's true. So basically, a lot of people, you are telling me that, let's take a break, answer all the questions, because if you're getting the right answers, then it will make much more sense. Otherwise, the confusion will still remain there. Okay, great. So let's take a break. Okay, and then we'll move on to the next session of the certificates. Okay, just give me 1 second. Let me just bring out the questions. And guys, if you want, I can give 2 minutes or 5 minutes. Just put in all your questions that you want, and I can, start using. I can see the questions coming in. So let's start off. You can keep continuing putting the questions. It will update automatically. Okay, 1 second.